They say truth is stranger than fiction. Sometimes it's darker too. It began on a snowy road, far from anything familiar. Four friends, Emma, Lucas, Sarah, and Danny, were heading to a ski lodge for what they thought would be a weekend of snowboarding and cheap laughs. The road stretched endlessly, bordered by towering evergreens cloaked in white. The sun had already dipped behind the mountains, leaving the world dim and gray. Danny, the group's joker, started in on ghost stories. "Have you heard of the Slenderman?" he asked, smirking as he glanced at them in the rearview mirror. Tall, faceless dude in a suit, all creepy-like. Tentacles for arms. Loves remote places like this. Lucas groaned. "Knock it off, man. You're just trying to scare us." But Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Where'd you hear that?" she asked. "Internet. Creepiest stuff you'll ever read. He stalks you, gets inside your head. Some people say they see him in the woods, just standing there, watching." The snow outside seemed to deepen with every word. Emma, quiet until then, glanced out the window and murmured, "Let's talk about something else." They didn't, and maybe that's where the trouble began. Words have power after all. The lodge wasn't what they expected. Half buried in snow, it looked more like an afterthought than a destination. The power was out, the receptionist explained, the blizzard knocking out the lines. "Room 217, she said, handing over a key. "Don't wander outside tonight. Storm's worse than it looks." The hallway to their room was dim, the flickering emergency lights casting shadows that seemed to follow them. The room itself was simple. 2 beds, a couch, and a wide window overlooking the forest. The glass was rimmed with frost, obscuring the view. But Emma thought she saw movement in the trees below. That first night, they huddled in the room as the wind howled outside. Danny suggested cards, and the mood lightened until the lights cut out entirely. "Just the generator," Lucas said, but his voice wavered. Sarah's phone flashlight flicked on, cutting through the dark. That's when Emma screamed. She pointed at the window. "Something's out there." They all turned to look. Nothing, just swirling snow. Danny laughed nervously. "You're seeing things." But Emma was certain. It was tall, taller than the trees, and it had no face. The next morning, the storm had slowed, and the group ventured outside. Fresh snow blanketed the world, muffling every sound. It was serene, almost peaceful, until they found the tracks. Long, spindly impressions stretched across the snow, as if something impossibly thin had walked barefoot through the forest. "What kind of animal?" Sarah started, but trailed off. "It's not an animal," Emma said. Her voice was flat, her face pale. The tracks led them to a clearing where an old, abandoned cabin stood, its roof sagging under the weight of snow. The windows were broken, and the door creaked on rusted hinges. Something about the place made Lucas step back. "We shouldn't be here," he muttered. Then they saw it. At first, it was just a shadow among the trees, but as their eyes adjusted, they realized it was a figure. Tall, unnaturally tall, with arms that seemed to stretch and twist. Its head was smooth, featureless, and wrong. The air seemed to grow colder. Emma whispered, "Do you see it?" No one answered. They couldn't move, couldn't breathe as the figure shifted closer, not walking but gliding through the snow. Its tendrils snaked outward, brushing the branches as it came. Then Sarah screamed, and the spell broke. Back at the lodge, they barricaded the door, trembling as they tried to make sense of what they'd seen. "It wasn't real," Danny insisted, his voice cracking. "It's just the storm messing with us." But Emma shook her head. It's him, Danny. It's him. You said his name, and now he's here." Lucas tried to reassure her, but even he looked terrified. The wind outside turned into a low, guttural moan, and then the tapping started. Tap, tap, tap. It came from the window. Slowly they turned. The frost-covered glass rippled as if something pressed against it from outside. Emma edged forward, peeking through the foggy pane, and then she screamed again. The slender man stood there, inches away, his tendrils splayed across the glass. The room plunged into chaos. The lights flickered and died, the door rattled on its hinges, and the cold seemed to seep into their bones. Someone, Lucas maybe, yelled to run, but there was nowhere to go. And then, in the confusion, Emma was gone. By morning, the storm had cleared, but the lodge was empty. The search teams found no trace of Emma, or anyone else for that matter. Just footprints leading from room 217 into the forest. No one knows what happened to them, not for certain. Some say it was the storm. Others whisper about the Slender Man. I've told this story before, but I always leave one thing out. I was there, I saw him, and I'm the only one who made it back.